All right, it is currently just about 6:01 p.m. on Tuesday, August 8th of 2023. My name is Nick Kremp. I'm the conservation agent for the city of Leominster. We'll start today's meeting with a roll call of the commissioners present. Mike Seekey.
Here.
Jim Chambers.
Here.
Stephanie Quinlan.
Here.
And Richard Gullick.
Here.
And absent are Bob Seacard and our chair, Chuck Raymond. And I'll just say up top real quick, in case some of the commission members aren't aware, our one commissioner, Ken Ridlin, has recently resigned. So he'll no longer be on the commission. So we got 4 out of 6. With that is a quorum. And I'll go ahead and pass it off to our vice chair, Richard Gullick.
Thank you very much, sir.
Oh, and just silence any devices, if you got it.
Mm-hmm.
I always need that reminder, so before I forget. Sorry, go ahead, Richard.
No trouble at all.
Alright.
Okay, so is there anybody who wants to ask anything of the commission related to wetlands or commission work that's not on the agenda tonight? Everybody's here for something on the agenda? I hope we get to yours soon. We'll check on it after we get through the first one. So our first, we have 5 new hearings tonight and 2 continued hearings. We start with the new hearings. So the first one, pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act. The Leominster Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on a request for a determination of applicability for the replacement of a gas main and associated site work in the wetland buffer zone of an intermittent stream. The address is 816 Pleasant Street, map and parcel 490-15A. There is no DEP file number yet.
It's an RDA, so we
Oh,
don't
there's
get
not.
a DEP
My bad.
review.
Thank you. Straighten that out quick. Honors.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Patrick McCarty Engineering, here tonight representing myself and my wife Jessica. We live at 816 Pleasant Street. We have since 2002 when we built the house.
You wanna flip that up here?
That's a quick one, I hope.
Okay, sure.
So, we built the house in 2002. It's currently heated by oil heat. In the corner of the house, in the basement here, is our mechanical room. We have 2 275-gallon oil tanks. We're doing a whole renovation of the HVAC system, and we'd like to convert to natural gas. There unfortunately is natural gas here on the street, so we're proposing to run a new gas line down the side of the yard into the house. This is Wilder Brook. There is a granite retaining wall along the side of Wilder Brook that varies from, 4 feet to 6 feet in elevation change up to my lawn area. So we're proposing to run an erosion control barrier, stake silt fence and straw wattles along the top of the wall, returning to the house, and then we put the gas line in. National Grid would do the actual line installation, but where I'm pretty meticulous about my yard, we'll have our own crew there to install the silt fence, assist with the backfill, get the loam and seeding done right away and restore the lawn. So pretty minor, it's all currently developed area. I'm just hoping the commission would grant a negative determination so we can proceed with the gas installation.
Okay, first question.
Yes,
This says in our agenda that it's for replacement of a gas main. That's not correct, is it?
That was
It's for
my,
installation of a gas main.
correct.
Okay. So let's please update that with the agenda for the record.
How deep do those lines have to be?
Only like 3 feet.
So you trench it or you?
No, they're actually gonna dig it, but they use a really skinny bucket. I'm actually hoping they're gonna let me dig it myself with the mini, and then I can minimize the mess.
Yep.
So,
It's kind of like a digger for a cable. How
no, it's an
small is it?
actual trench, so you have to dig a 1 foot wide, 3 foot deep trench, put some sand in the bottom, lay the pipe, cover it with sand, put the marking tape, and then put it all back together. So 3 to 4 days tops. First day we'd set up the silt fence. Second day would be the tap in the street and potentially some of the work on the site, and then continue to the house, backfill, lumen seed, and
Okay.
turn the sprinklers back on.
Commissioners, questions, thoughts?
I had mine.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, with no further questions from the commission, we'll leave it, open it up to the folks in the audience, if anybody has any questions related to this particular case, not that case, okay? Then we'll close this hearing, having checked with the audience, and move on to Mr. Kremp. What do you recommend in this case?
so yeah, it's a pretty minor job. The only reason I even advised Patrick to put an RDA in for this is because of the proximity to that stream. But like you said, it's existing lawn, it's a really quick work. So I would recommend that we find a -3 determination, specifically that this work is in the area of our jurisdiction, but will not affect the resource area given certain conditions. And I would just suggest that we put in the condition that there's erosion control barrier, which Patrick already stated they're planning on putting in, and then just that they would notify me when they're gonna be planning to begin the work. But that's my recommendation, that we give a -3 with those two conditions.
Any comments from the commissioners?
No.
Would anybody like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anybody second?
I will second.
And we have a second.
I'll take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Stephanie Quinlan
Aye.
and Richard Gully.
Aye.
All right, with that, we find a -3 determination with those two conditions, and I will get that determination in the mail tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
No
Thank you,
problem.
sir.
Thank you, Patrick.
Excellent.
Round two.
Round two.
On to our next.
So before, because of the history of this site, I'm just gonna ask if we can move the certificate of compliance vote up ahead of this, because there's an
yes,
existing
I got
you.
order for this property.
Okay, so we're jumping down to part E1A of this particular agenda. The certificate of compliance for 1281 Central Street, DEP file number 199-849. We're bringing that up in advance of a new hearing for the same property on a different matter.
So there was an existing order for this property that has since expired. It was for a similar type project, like I think it was one commercial building, right, with an associated like parking lot and such, and that along with the Jehovah's Witness Church or hall next door is what the basin was originally designed for. Is that correct, Patrick?
It was designed originally for the one large building.
Okay, encompassing those two sites.
Correct.
Right, okay, so that's why the basin is already there, but obviously, nothing was built on this site, plans have changed, and instead of the one commercial building, they have two lots with the one being the Jehovah's Hall, and then the other one now coming up for this new NOI. So I would recommend that we close out that order with a certificate of compliance, an invalid certificate of compliance, just stating that the work was never started.
Did the order, the notice to include the Jehovah's Witness building or just their property and then they shared the
I think it was,
detention?
I believe it was spanning those two lots, and then that order was scrapped, there was a new NOI for just that one lot. for the
Okay,
Jehovah's.
got it.
Yes.
So we'll close that part.
Patrick, you developed both of those parcels, the Jehovah Witnesses built the structure, right, but you did all the land work, or?
Kind of in conjunction, it's like I was saying during the site walk, it's pretty amazing to watch them build the Kingdom Hall with their quick builds, where they call in people from all over New England. That come out on a weekend and they'll frame the entire hall in a weekend.
Awesome.
It's really,
Yeah.
it's amazing, the teamwork. So we help them out with some bulldozer work and some compaction and stuff like that, roller compactor. But yeah, there was a separate NOI just for that was issued and certificate of compliance issued. This one lags back to when my father originally purchased the property and designed it for one big industrial building.
When the lot was cleared.
Yes. Yeah.
And the Jehovah's Hall doesn't have anything to do with, because that was under a separate NOI just
Correct.
on that lot,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
So nothing was done. Any further questions in that case?
No.
Okay. I'd like a motion that if somebody would be so kind to give this or award, what is the right word? A
I believe
certificate of
yeah,
compliance.
Find an invalid or incomplete certificate, or no, an invalid certificate of compliance that the work was never started.
I will make a motion for what you said.
Thank you, Mike.
I will second that.
Alright, thank
Literally
you,
and figuratively.
Stephanie. And I'll take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call, Jim Chambers and Richard Gulick.
Aye.
Alright, so that certificate is granted, and now we can move on to the new NOI.
Granted, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yes.
Pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, the Leominster Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on a notice of intent for the construction of 2 commercial buildings and a parking lot in a wetland buffer zone, address 1281 Central Street, map and parcel 500-6-2, DEP file number 199-1179. Patrick McCarty of McCarty Engineering, you presenting on this again?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, sir. Please go ahead.
Alright, again, for the record, Patrick McCarty, McCarty Engineering. Here tonight, representing New England Style, who is the applicant and has the land under purchase and sales agreement from my father, Daniel McCarty, under his realty trust. Give a little backstory. My father purchased the property, I don't know, 30 years ago. It was mostly wooded. There was a small auto machine shop building here where the guy would rebuild engines and do auto repair. My father's initial thoughts were to build a 2-story industrial building because the site did slope down to towards the back. So Route 12 here along the bottom of the page, slope towards the back. That building turned out to be very expensive to build because the foundation would have to be so strong to resist the soil above it. Never really made sense, and so ended up splitting it into 2 parcels. The original parcel was here along the street, all the way to the back, this jog here and back. Split off 1 lot, sold that to the Jehovah's Witnesses who did their own Kingdom Hall construction on this portion of the lot. Prior to even doing that, we had filled in both sides. We had constructed the detention basin, installed the outlet control structures. And so when we did the site plans and permitting for the Kingdom Hall, we used a portion of the capacity of the detention basin. And now with this new project, we're proposing to use the remaining capacity of the detention basin to handle the stormwater that's coming from this project. So we have the delineated edge of wetlands that was delineated years ago and re-verified by Mary Ann DePinto of 3 Oaks Environmental. Her reports included in the notice of intent that was submitted. We have the existing slope here that we were showing riprap, but it's taken so well with the lumen seed that we're gonna take the riprap off the revised set of plans, and this will remain as a grass slope. So the wetland line is here, the red is the 100-foot buffer zone, so the work that's within jurisdiction is this small area of gravel laydown yard, the guardrail that's at the top of the slope, and then we do have 2 double catch basins that go to a water quality unit, to a manhole to step down the grade, and then the discharge pipe to the detention basin.
Please describe water quality unit.
It's a proprietary stormwater unit that's meant to remove the total suspended solids from the stormwater before it discharges to the detention basin. So there's different manufacturers, Storm Scepter, HydroWorks, essentially creates a vortex inside of the structure. So as the water comes in, it gets that spinning motion, it forces the particulates to the bottom, and the clean water goes out the discharge side to the detention basin.
What about petroleum products?
So they're also equipped with hoods. The catch basins are equipped with hoods, so the oil is heavier than water, so it would sit on the top, and so the clean water would go out under the hood and into that. So if there was a spill, it would get caught in those structures. Anything inside the building would get caught by the floor drains that go to the oil water separator that then discharge to the city sewer. I guess that's part of the history that I forgot to tell the commission is this site didn't have sewer, so we extended the sewer years ago, probably 2008 or 9. We started at the trailer park where the sewer ended, and we ran a sewer line up Central Street within the pavement, providing stubs to the abutter up on the factory and the house up on the hill, the single family house that was here, and then the sewer comes into the front of the site, continues all the way across, feeds the Kingdom Hall, keeps going to feed these buildings, and we brought it over and tied it into the animal hospital. So everybody got sewer, and then has the ability, you can see the easement line continues, so people uphill from us have the ability to tie into city sewer in the future.
I'm not sure feeds is the best word there, sir, when talking sewer line.
Yeah.
Somebody might take that too literally.
So,
Connected. Just sounds.
yeah, so the extent of the work within the commission's jurisdiction is just what's inside this red line. So this little area of paved parking, guardrail, a little bit of grading to clean up the top of the slope, and then that drainage pipe down to the detention basin. We did submit currently to the planning board, who sent it out for the typical peer review comments, police, fire, board of health, conservation, DPW. And we've received comments back. No structural changes to the plan, no building edits, parking edits. One thing was to add some landscaping, street trees here along the front, show some snow storage areas, and some notation, so no physical changes to the design are being made as part of that revised set that's going back to the planning board. This was submitted also to DEP. They have issued us a file number and they did not have any comments. And it is a buffer zone only project, and so we're respectfully requesting that the commission issue the standard order conditions with any special conditions you deem appropriate.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner?
You just mentioned, snow storage, where would that occur?
So we're gonna have it here along the side of the driveway. The thought process being if you're plowing and you're coming in, you're gonna angle your blade away from the building, so you'd windrow here along the side. We have this large area over here where we could stockpile. This is a guardrail, so it's not practical that we're gonna push it down over the hill and take up detention basin capacity, so it would really be the outside edges of that.
Well, I would, be wondering if you put it on the pavement, and if there were to be any melt with petroleum contamination from parked vehicles,
Yep.
or wherever, that would go into the drain that goes through the oil water separator.
No, so the oil water separators on the
It's just for the
interior drains.
interior drains, but
Yes.
the exterior from the parking lot, there's,
That's when you have the catch basins
Catch
with the
basin with
hoods, and so
hoods
the
on
hood
it.
is meant to stop, it goes into the outlet pipe as a shield. And so any floating debris or oil that's sitting on top of the water doesn't get down there. And then, of course, DEP regulations say, I believe it's 15 gallons. If you have any spill greater than 15 gallons, you have to call DEP and the fire department to respond to that.
Commissioner Quinn?
So that would take care of any sediment or petroleum product. But I can't imagine that that would be particularly effective for like salt or anything like that, anything that was dissolved in the water.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are we planning on salting this parking lot? I would assume. Are there?
Yep, so please don't take offense to this response. I've been an expert witness in 7 slip and fall cases as a professional engineer, and I will never ever tell any of my clients how to treat their parking lot. That's their best management practices on how they see fit to manage that. If it's sand, if they're comfortable with sand, they're comfortable with sand, they have the cleanup. If it's salt, they're comfortable with salt for the melt off. I'm not in the business of telling them how to sand or salt. I wouldn't recommend, from my expert witness standpoint, that you are either.
No, I completely agree with that. My concern is with the amount of salt that will be discharged adjacent to the wetland.
I can guarantee that this is Route 12, and we've all driven Route 12 in a snowstorm, and Leominster DPW does an amazing job, but you can clearly tell where the town responsibility ends and the state responsibility starts, because they're out there spraying pre-treatment chemicals on the roads, which are those stripes you see on the pavement prior to a snowstorm, and they're peppering the entire area with salt. You could just sit across from the old Lancaster Golf and watch the trucks load after load after load from that salt barn leave. So whatever's being applied along Route 12 is up here in terms of volume, and whatever would be applied on this small little parking lot would be down there. And all that state drainage is all tied together and dumps directly along Route 12 to the resource area.
Does that stormwater drainage system require any maintenance?
Yes, yep, should be mowed twice a year, and any accumulated sediment that does make it to it should be removed twice a year. This is all a vegetated grass slope now. This is all mature growth. We've been mowing it twice a year. It could use a mowing right now, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's it. Just mow it and make sure you keep the volume and keep the sediment from building up in it. And it has outlet control structures where the outlet's higher than the elevation of the detention basin, so that water can stage up, settle out, and infiltrate before discharging to the resource area.
And so how is the petroleum product collected? I guess I understand how you're separating it, but what happens to it once it's separated?
Well, if you have a large spill that it's actually collected.
No, but I
you
mean,
have
just
to-
over time, if you're if this is a maintenance garage, there's going to be.
It's not a maintenance garage where they're servicing large trucks.
No, and
They're a
they're taking
high-speed-
care of their own equipment.
Right,
But I'm just, as a facilities engineer, I'm familiar with a lot of petroleum spills onto property, and regardless, it's accidental. But changing the oil, filling the gas, whatever, I'm concerned
so
that product from this building goes down that drain.
right, so as a facilities engineer, you know that everybody's required to have a spill kit in their garage, right? So if there's a spill, you run and get the absorbent pads, you get the I'm drawing a blank on the tubes there.
Socks.
Yeah, but that's not the right word.
Containment
for it.
socks.
Yeah,
Very.
Boom.
Boom, thank you,
Booms,
yeah. So you have the responsibility as the operator for a small spill, and like I said, DEP requirements is anything over that, you're calling the fire.
Patrick, I'm not really asking about a spill, I'm just, if this system separates the oil, where does that oil go once it's separated?
No, I'm saying if it doesn't remove the oil, the hood prevents it from flowing directly down the
But
stream.
that's only in
Right.
the event of a spill, right? That's not necessarily just weathering of the parking area. You know, we all see in the parking lot, it's all got oil stains.
I expect that will go and flow on through. I don't
Yeah.
imagine that system is good enough to separate.
All right,
such a
that-
thin
that's-
sheen versus a more thicker inside
Sure.
layer.
Right,
Okay.
Yep.
I just wanna know if the system was
Right.
advanced or not, with reverse osmosis.
no, nothing to that extent.
Okay.
Other thoughts from commissioners, questions?
I guess to that, the only thing I can add to that is it is designed, the whole drainage system is designed to meet the Massachusetts stormwater standards, so we submitted with the site plans a set of drainage calculations, it says here are all the standards, and stamp that gets, and we also have a local stormwater bylaw here in Leominster. It complies to that, and that all gets reviewed by John Roseberry at the DPW as part of the planning board process.
Thank you.
Most of these companies also, I think it's very rare that they have time or they wanna take the time to service their own trucks. They'll take them to someplace to have them serviced.
Oh, whatever.
So remind us what the company's doing there again?
So they're a site work and hardscape company, so they'll do stonework, walkways, patios,
And they'll have rock stored on site.
Yep, they wanna have some bins to have different kinds of rock and site materials, crushed stone, products like that.
Patio block, that kind of stuff too.
Just for not for retail, just for their own step projects, you might have stone delivered for a stone wall job.
Okay.
Is there anybody from out in the audience who would like to ask any questions about this particular case? Okay, seeing there are no questions from our audience, Mr. Kremp, what would you recommend here?
So I would recommend following the site visit and the presentation that Patrick's given us, along with the NOI submitted and the stormwater calculations that he had mentioned that he included in there. I would recommend that we approve the order of conditions with the standard special conditions that we include with all of our orders of conditions. So that would be my recommendation.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner, appreciate that. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, sir.
Take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Stephanie Quinlan
Aye.
and Richard Gullet.
Aye.
Okay.
Excellent.
Motion passes 4-0, and I will get you that order tomorrow in the mail.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Would it be
Just,
possible to get a copy of the RDA via email so I can let National Grid know for scheduling?
I'll email tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you all very
Thank you,
much.
Patrick.
Have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
I expect there's, of course, there's oil sheen and dissolved salt going in everywhere.
Sure.
Every place.
Yeah,
I
but I
understand
mean,
the
this is
concern.
just a focused little stream right out the wetland, I don't know.
It's a very lovely wetland down there, actually. It's very pretty.
Contaminant
Down a steep
area
hill.
is very high before it gets to the stream as well.
Yeah, so the wetland will do a good job of filtering out at least the oil, dissolved stays dissolved. Are we going on with this?
So we'll go
Grant Street?
in order, yep, with the 159 Grand Street.
Now, our next new hearing, number 3, tonight is pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act. Leominster Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on a notice of intent for the replacement of a dock, address 159 Grant Street, map and parcel 474-3815, DEP file number 199-1181. You look ready to go.
I am so ready.
What is your name and what's your
I
address?
am Carolyn Zumwalt. My address
Carolyn with a C-A-R,
is I-N-E, it's spelled Caroline,
Caroline,
C-A-R-O-L-I-N-E.
thank you. And the last
Zumwalt, Z-U-M, as in Mary, W-A-L-T, like in Tom.
Zumwalt.
Yes.
And
my
you're at
husband-
159 Grant Street?
159 Grant Street here in Leominster. My husband is William, also known as Bill.
Welcome, Bill.
Thank you
Please
very
tell
much,
us about what
Vice
you're
Chair.
looking for.
I want to thank you first for having us on your agenda.
Oh,
Very important. We are brand new residents to town. We moved from Oregon. We purchased our home at 159 Grant in June.
Wow.
So we are just excited to
welcome.
be here. Thank you so much. We've just loved meeting all our new friends, and we also have family here too. So
was she on one of your hikes?
She was on the last one, yeah, I believe so, at Prospect
That's
Park.
right. remember
Park.
if
Yes,
coming from-
exactly.
Yes, from the, from
I know I
work.
had the hat and the thing.
Yeah, we looked different that day,
It was
okay.
wonderful, but I want to thank also
Well-
Mr. Kemp for helping us with this application, the NOI. That we're seeking permission to utilize, restore the property in front of us, which is across from our deck on the edge of Lake Samoset. As we understand, it has been used in past years. It's a very old residence and old property. It is in disrepair now and has not been maintained for many years, as we understand, and that's anecdotal. We plan to take down oak brush, which has grown up within the last 5-6 years. There are big, beautiful existing pine trees, of course, we leave them, they're lovely. We'd like to take out the oak brush and then also discover the previous, we're hoping, walking trail down to the water. And so we're excited to see that and do some restoration there and make it user-friendly for ourselves and for other residents if they want to join up, and beautify the property as well, as our neighbors have done. We are surrounded by a wonderful Lake Samoset family, and everybody's been tremendously welcoming. And also we've noticed how lovely the properties are near us, and we kind of want to join into that. So in addition to the walking path, we and the brush removal, which is mainly oak, and we'll do that ourselves. And we also want to take the dock that we see that's a derelict piece of equipment down at the bottom. It's roughly maybe 10 foot by maybe 3 or 4 foot, used in past years. It's partially up on the bank, but it has not been accessed or used in many years. So we need to assess that, find out what kind of shape it's in, if it can be repaired.
Was that a permanent structure at one time? Did it have pilings into the water?
I haven't been down there and researched it so much. Just visually, it looks like it was just a floating dock that might have been pulled up.
Okay.
And as I understand, the Lake Association we're still new and finding out about the rules and everything on the Lake Association. For wintertime, likes the docks, if they're floating, to be pulled up.
Mhm.
So for safety for everybody in the use of the lake. But we have applied to Lake Association and our checks have been cashed. So it's a good sign.
When you say applied to them, explain what that's for then, please.
We filled out an application and mailed it in to the Lake Samoset Association to be part of the general membership, and that's one segment. And then as well, if a person wants to and has permission to use the lakefront property in front of one's home, an additional fee is required, and we've sent that in as well and gotten a response that we've had our checks cashed and a verbal also.
Is the shoreline their property or your property?
The shoreline, as I understand, is Lake Samoset's property, I believe 100 feet in, so we do not own that. And our property line goes to the edge of Grant Street, which is right between our home and the lake.
And you're looking to put in a floating dock, I presume?
Most generally, yes. so not a permanent structure and nothing further from what we might ascertain that might have existed before for just family use. So,
Nick, is there any issue with us approving this, given that they don't own that property that it's going on?
No, I've spoken, I cannot recall,
Mike Valley.
Mike Valley, yes, I've spoke with Mike Valley over the phone the other day and he,
Mike Valley is who?
with the Lake Samoset Association.
Yeah, he's the vice president of the
Thank you.
association.
And we talked about this project, he's aware of it, they're fine, that's pretty standard for what, other residents of the lake do. You know, cause the association owns the shore line around the lake, like on the lake side of the road that goes around, but, people that live on that adjacent section of the lake are free to like use it as they see fit, so.
So they need permission from both us and the Lake Homeowners Association, correct?
Yes.
And these are separate?
Yep.
So one can come first or the other?
Correct.
Thank you.
And I'd spoken with Mike about their procedure for alerting lake residents about the process of permitting through us. Because there is that binary like approval, like from the association and officially from the city through us. And he said that he's on their website, I haven't had a chance to read it, but on their website they have some instructions and he said they're gonna look at that and revamp it, make it a little more clear that people do need to talk to us before they, cause there seems to be an impression that people, as long as they get us permission from the association, then they're good to go, but
It's the new folks who are, who got the
Yeah, so- yeah, they're doing great.
Okay, here,
Hey.
Vice Chair Gallick, here are the lines and we're coloring in the lines.
And we like that,
Okay,
we
that's
like
just-
permission,
Okay, all right,
forgiveness.
we're just rolling.
so
Question for you before we go
Yes.
further with this, are all the commissioners able to vote on this? Is there any conflict of interest?
That's a good question.
Fair question,
Great
thank you.
Well,
I don't
You're a member of the association, but that's
I am, but
different.
the
Commissioner
Lake
Seeking
Owners
lives as a
Association.
property on the lake.
I live in Peninsula. The Lake Owners Association doesn't have jurisdiction over the peninsula, so I'm not part. I joined the Lake Owners Association because it does a lot of good things.
And
So
that's
help
not
with the water.
necessarily a conflict of interest then.
Well, you
I-
folks determine, I don't think it is.
I wouldn't consider that. If you feel comfortable voting,
I do.
I have no problem with you voting. If you
Yeah.
wanna recuse yourself, we have 3 other members.
I'm good with that too. I
Yeah.
belong to the trail stewards and I vote on things related to trail stewards proposals.
You're fine.
So, okay,
Okay.
just wanted to
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with your property.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Yeah. Is this gonna require heavy machinery work, or are you just gonna be hand clearing?
Hand clearing, just a couple of senior citizens going after it.
So you're basically just gonna be cutting down the sapling, none of them are bigger than this
Correct.
really around.
Yeah,
And then just establishing like a footpath.
yeah, we think there had been an existing trail maybe at some point, so we just wanna make that super safe.
Commissioner?
How is the floating dock anchored to the shore?
You know, I don't have an answer to that except visually. I believe it's been pulled up and just rested on the ground, on the lake edge there. It's tipped at an angle, it is askew, there are no pilings or beams showing.
It's,
I was assuming that it was actually floating, so there was like anchors or ties on each corner. So,
Over there are a number of docks that are permanent with pilings in the water. Others are floating. Typically, the floating ones will have a screw, like a tent post. Because there's no real current over there. It's pretty flat and there are no boats to disturb it at all. It's all kayaks and that
the
stuff.
water comes
So-
over that dam pretty damn. good.
Well, that's going the other way around the corner from them.
Yeah.
And it's only this far over the dam and anything gets caught there. So, but it's going over there pretty good right now.
It is,
Okay.
But usually they're like a tent post, you screw them into the ground and it holds them with a cable.
There was some metal posts and piping kind of out around that dock. I'm assuming it was associated with that. So whatever, I'm assuming it would be something similar, but no pilings driven into the lake bottom.
And hopefully no pressure treated wood, that would be.
Yes, right, yeah, and before we do anything, we'll probably contact Mike again, we do see him quite often.
Sure.
Enos dog walk by our house every day, so we say hi. But we also want to find out from the association how to do this properly.
Sure.
You know, and how to make it beautiful too, because I think Mr. Whitney, I've been doing my history, had an idea to make that area look beautiful and be user friendly.
There was a case about a year ago, right near here on the pond behind the senior center where somebody wanted to put in a dock and clear a little brush. And the brush was really filling in the pond, and it was good to remove a teeny bit of it. And this commission had no trouble with that particular one. This was fairly simple.
Yeah.
So with no further commissioner questions, we'll open this up to the audience. Does anybody want to add anything? No. She covered it for you, I guess? Any thoughts, questions? Okay. With that, we'll close this hearing with no further comment. Thank you for your time.
And thank you as
Thank
well.
you. Nick, do you have a recommendation for this?
Given, the existing nature of the site and its previous use, I would recommend that we approve, the order of conditions with, not even with our normal special conditions really, it's such a minor project, so I would recommend that we approve the order as presented.
Okay. I go along with that. Did anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make that.
Thank you, Commissioner James. Seconded by Commissioner Seiki. Thank you.
Alright,
You're halfway there.
Jen,
Love it.
I got Mike, I'll take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call, Stephanie Quinlan.
Aye.
And Richard Gullick.
Aye.
Alright, motion passes 4-0, and I will get that order in the mail to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Enjoy your dock and your lake.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
to us,
Thank you
and
for
hope to see
seeing
you
us.
on one of the hikes again. on the
Indeed,
walks.
I'll be there.
Yes,
Thanks.
August 24th
Thank you,
and
Carolyn.
26th.
Thank you, Bill.
Keep an eye on it.
Goodbye, thank you.
Where?
Uh,
Oh, you were talking about.
yeah, we'll get there, yeah, it's on there.
Our
It's on there.
next case, number 4, is pursuant to Massachusetts. We can get through this quicker sometime. We're gonna find a way about it.
Yeah.
Pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, the Leominster Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on a notice of intent for the construction of a 21-unit apartment building in the wetland buffer and riverfront area of Fallbrook. The address is Brooks Pond Road, Lot 8A, map and parcel 317-5D-1. DEP file number is not yet assigned. And tonight presenting on the case,
Christopher Anderson, Planning Engineering.
Thank you.
So just again, for the record, Chris Anderson with Planning Engineering here on behalf of the Pine Hill Realty Trust for work associated with the construction of a 21-unit assisted living facility. Currently, this project is associated with the Brooks Pond development, which is an extensive 55-plus community. Much of the site has already been built out, and we're just starting to wrap up the last little bits of construction, if you will. Just to orientate ourselves for commission members who may not be familiar with this property, it's located off of Central Street, right behind the O'Reilly's Auto Parts. There's currently a series of new building constructions occurring immediately along the road. This project is located further into the property itself and away from Central Street. For the projects, currently this area of the property contains several garage structures and pavement associated with the original permitted use. It's the intent to demolish most of these buildings and construct a new structure with associated parking and drainage improvements. The proposed building will actually be located outside the 200-foot riverfront area as well as the 100-foot buffer zone. But before you tonight is associated with the drainage improvements that are required in order to facilitate this construction. This project was originally permitted back in the 90s and 2000s before the onset of current stormwater standards. So this existing basin that's already currently on the property accommodates all the stormwater runoff from the development, or a good portion of it, mitigates it before it discharges it further closer to Key Street. As part of the overall development, we're effectively, for lack of a better term, beefing up this basin substantially. The basin is currently kind of fallen into disrepair. Opportunistic vegetation is kind of taking its place. So it's the intent of the applicant to effectively clean up this basin, make it more compliant with current regulations, and to increase the capacity significantly to accommodate this development as well as another development located elsewhere on the property. So the only work that was truly being performed with the jurisdictional areas would be associated with the redevelopment and recreation of this detention basin within the 200-foot riverfront area. This would be also located outside the 100-foot buffer zone as well. So this is pretty far set back from the river, and it's just purely to recreate this detention basin. At the end of the day, the proposed additional modifications to this basin will encompass approximately 19,315 square feet of the riverfront area. Per the regulation, improvements associated with stormwater management features are exempt from the Riverfront Standard Act, with the exception that as long as there's no viable alternative. This is already currently the low point of the entire property, so by default, it's more of an advantageous location to put stormwater management features. In addition, all this infrastructure has already currently been developed, and what we're doing is improving upon that as part of the stormwater management. So we're trying to improve this as much as possible. At the end of the day, this basin will be approximately 33,000 cubic feet larger than it currently is, so it's not an insignificant number. We're maintaining the outlet structures so that they continue to operate as originally designed, but at a lower rate. If you think of it as a bathtub, if you have a small bathtub with a pipe out at elevation 100, with the bottom being at elevation 90, for lack of a better term, what we're pretty much doing is increasing the 90 elevation so that the water doesn't reach as high. As a really quick, analogy for this kind of design. With that being said, that's the general consensus of the projects. We haven't received the EP file numbers yet, so we do know this will be continued to the next hearing. But we figured that we get in front of the commission, get any initial feedback or concerns, and we can address them prior to the next hearing.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Questions from Commissioner? You first?
Yeah, so this isn't related to the construction of a new 21 unit apartment building. This is for the improvements of an existing basin.
Indirectly, yes and no. So we're doing the proposed improvements because we're building that building.
Okay.
So the building is precipitating the change.
Where is the building relative to the jurisdictional lines?
So the 200 riverfront area is right here. I apologize for not having a better marker, if you will.
Okay.
So the building is 1 foot outside the 200 foot riverfront area. So the building in all its own.
Not an accident.
No, that's very well designed. So the building is located outside of it, all the sidewalks, all the impervious area. This is just purely detention work associated with that development. That's
Yes,
why.
okay.
It's a nice looking detention pond right now with a lot of plants, fair amount of purple loose strife, I guess. We're gonna dig it out and it'll regrow. Commissioner Chambers.
What's the footprint of the building?
It's a very good question. I do not have that number off the top of my head.
It's an assisted living facility.
It's an assisted living facility, yes.
Well, I asked that just to understand how much impermeable surface you have right there.
Yep, so.
It's already impermeable because they're taking down other buildings to put it up.
But they're smaller buildings.
It's located in an area of also pavement.
I know, it was where the rental office was, on the corner there, right?
At one point in time, but we went through the planning board process as well, which was also reviewed by DPW. So this project is also associated with another project elsewhere on the property that also drains into the detention basin. So what we've done is we took a look at the overall impervious area that's developed between the two projects. So that volume, or that square footage, if you will, is just over 16,000 square feet of new impervious. So for purpose of analyzing this basin, what we did was we took a 100-year storm event, a 7-inch rainfall event, times that by the square footage of the impervious area as a really rough and tumble drainage cut analysis to figure out what the volumetric increase in runoff would be at the highest storm event. That turned out to be around 9,400 cubic feet. So we're giving it 3,300 cubic feet, or 33,000 cubic feet when we really only need to give it just shy of 10. So
How's the current system been operating with all the rain that we've had?
it's been operating the same way it's been doing for the last 20 some odd years. So it's plugging along, there's never been any significant issues.
Well, my question there is, there's no, other than because of the expansion and newer technology, whatever, there's not really reason to expand it because you got the capacity.
There's truly no necessary need for it, besides the fact that we want to clean up the area and provide better compliance with its current regulations than what it was originally designed to.
Thank you.
So when you say, and I made a note about that, you wanna make it more compliant with current stormwater standards. It's not going to be compliant with current,
It's still compliant with stormwater regulations. It's an infiltration basin. It's still going to operate as such. Still has all the required pre-treatment. But what this basin was designed prior to the advent of stormwater management. So stormwater management was truly not implemented.
but when you upgrade it, you don't have to bring it up?
We're bringing it to further compliance because we're bolstering it up, providing additional capacity to mitigate the runoff rates getting off the site.
And where does the water for the community garden come from?
It comes from small irrigation wells
All around there?
right there. So it's just a shallow well. It's blatantly labeled with not potable water, whole 9 yards. It's just a small irrigation.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
So concerning the other building that's gonna get built here, that's gonna be coming in to this commission under a separate NOI.
Correct.
And you said both of those buildings are gonna drain to that basin?
Correct, yes.
And there's a nearby basin to that other one, but that doesn't accept stormwater from that building. Is that
It will
correct?
not, as part of that.
It's from further back in the property.
That's from further back in the property, getting a little ahead of ourselves on that. We're still waiting for some information from our wetland scientists to complete the submittal. But effectively, none of the water from that building is getting into that basin based on the rating. It's a whole situation. But it all just effectively drains into the municipal, or to the existing infrastructure that's on the main roadway that ultimately taps into this giant 36-inch pipe that throws water to here.
And just if anyone's curious, that other building would be roughly kind of like directly underneath the legend of this map. Sort of, it's like across the street from
Yeah, it's
this one.
It's right off the corner here somewhere.
Okay.
Past the batch codes.
That's the
Across the
process.
street from Brooks, yeah. It's like right next to Brooks Pond.
It's legitimately right next to the
Yeah.
Excuse me. If we have no further questions here, we'll open this up to folks out in the audience. Still missing yet? Okay, we can keep trying. 0 for 4. Just trying to be a little humorous. Nick, what do you recommend here?
Yeah, so I would recommend, given the site walk and the improvements proposed to the basin, foreseeing, further development on the site, I would recommend that we approve this order of conditions with our standard, special conditions.
Okay, is there a motion to that effect?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Quinlan. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Seaton.
And I'll take the
Always
rest,
second.
I'll take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Jim Chambers.
Aye.
And Richard Gulick.
Aye.
Alright.
Thank you, Chris, that is passed.
This is the next one.
Thank you. And then, did I get the check already for the Brooks Pond advertisement?
I thought that was dropped off by Chris.
I thought it was, I just couldn't remember. It should be fine. I'll double check that, but if I don't have it, I'll be sure to reach out.
Just hold her hostage.
Yeah.
Moving ahead with Revolution.
Going on to Revolution.
So our next hearing, pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, the Leominster Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on a request for determination of applicability for the replacement of a stone retaining wall and steps in a wetland buffer zone, address 59 Revolution Drive, map and parcel 395-66. Is anyone here to speak on this particular subject?
Yes, sir. Chris Anderson with Hanning Engineering. Again, Chris Anderson with Hanning Engineering, here on behalf of William Antunes for the reconstruction of an existing landscape retaining wall on a property at 59 Revolution Drive. Currently, there's an existing single-family home that has a quite elevated porch season room situated above a stone patio that's immediately on the backside of the building. This property abuts the reservoir over here, which is located off Locust. But it does have its associated 100-foot buffer zone as well as the riverfront area. We did, based after conversations on the sidewalk on Friday, did a little further diving into it, and there's indeed a riverfront area associated with it. So there is also a 100-foot and 200-foot riverfront area, as well as a surface water zone A associated as well, due to its reservoir status. But as stated earlier, currently there's an existing retaining wall system that holds up the entire backside of the house, or at least the elevated portion of the three-season patio. That wall has effectively become null and void. It's in the state of disrepair and needs to be replaced before anything significant occurs to it. So it's the intent of the applicant to replace that existing wall with a brand new block retaining wall system, just along the outside portion of that retaining wall, in order to help bolster up that slope and to ensure that patio area and whatnot does not fail in the future, which could result in a much more colorful hearing with the commission if that ever occurs.
There is a room above this patio that's held up by posts, or elbow joints or whatever. So that's what they're worried is gonna collapse. If the soil under it collapses, if this wall collapses there.
Correct.
Sum it up?
Very much.
Thank you.
So we're getting ahead of the issue before it occurs. We'll be installing trowel and silt fence around effectively the limited clearing of the site, so that we can get enough appropriate equipment into the area as well in order to perform the work. Additional other work will be replacement of several existing stone and timber walls that have also kind of fallen into disrepair, as well as a new set of steps going from the driveway down to there to replace an existing set of stairs, which have unfortunately fallen into disrepair. I did a little additional research into the actual building. The building was originally issued a building permit in 1989, so it's not a young house anymore. Due to the topography and other water conditions in the area, I'm not surprised that it has reached the end of its life. So we're trying to get ahead of it before it becomes a bigger issue.
Please describe the topography and the vegetation between this zone and the reservoir.
So there is quite a bit of an elevation drop. The existing wall system sits at around elevation 160-ish. The actual pond or reservoir area sits around the elevation 126. So it's quite a bit of elevation drop down there. Much of this area has a large grouping of standing pines, which are tend to remain intact at this point in time. But elsewhere around the immediate yard area, it's just filled with creeper and other not so pleasant plants for this area. So part of this, getting in here and doing that, they're going to just clean up the edge of the lawn and remove any of those creeping vegetation.
But it's heavily vegetated between there and
It's heavily vegetated. There's a well-established wood line that occurs pretty much right at the property line to the that area. But the other area from the property line towards the house is a lawn area, or which was, but has a bunch of the creeper vegetation growing into it.
Thank you, Chris. Questions from commissioners? I'll make a quick note while you're thinking of questions. This is, in my almost 2 years now on the commission, it is the most sensitive receptor we've come across, being a drinking water reservoir this close. Nonetheless, the work looks like it needs to be done to protect this part of the building and keep that functional. So with that in mind, we'll ask if there are other questions. Anybody in the audience want to speak on this one?
Sorry.
I'm coming back here.
I do have a clarifying question. So you mentioned cleaning up the edge of the yard there. About how rough estimate, like how far in are they planning on clearing that? And then also, is it going to be cleared and then erosion control placed at the edge of that clearing? Is that the plan?
So the clearings will be limited to just, right inside the tree line. I wouldn't say more than 10 feet, just to get rid of that. If you remember, we were walking down into that area.
Yeah.
Right on the right side, there's a whole thing of couscous.
There's a bunch of riffraff before it dropped down.
Before it dropped off. So what we're gonna do is just get in there, clean up that area first, and then once we are able to get into the area to do the trenching for the erosion control, at that point we do that.
So the clearing is going to be mainly around that corner and just
Pretty
mainly
much
for access.
Big enough to get a mini in there or
Pretty
something?
much just enough to get the mini in there, maybe expand it a little bit to if they find, an invasive plant further and then they can
Sure.
scrape it out and just to get in.
But no tree clearing or like big shrub clearing, anything like that? Okay.
Just enough to get them in, and if we do find something significant, we can always reach out to the commission, but at this point, we don't foresee
You
that.
plan to leave the pines,
Pines are remaining intact.
and do we recommend that he cut the vines that were going up them? To help save the pines. Okay, any other questions from commissioners?
Just the second half of Nick's question about erosion control barriers.
Straw wattle and silt fence.
Yes. Okay, then nothing else from anybody in the audience then, so Nick, do you have a recommendation in this case?
So yeah, as stated, there's definitely a need for this work to be done at some point. It's not gonna hold up the way it is. We are close to that sensitive receptor, as Rich had said, with the reservoir. You're like kind of overlooking the reservoir from the backyard, but there is a good buffer of woodland there. So based on that, I would recommend that we find a -3 determination for this, which again is just stating that the work in question is within our jurisdiction, but will not affect the resource area given certain conditions. And I would recommend the conditions that there be erosion control placed around the perimeter of work, which Chris has stated they're already planning on doing, and then just to notify the agent 48 hours before work begins, just so I can be aware of when it's happening and keep an eye on it if anything's going wrong. So that would be my recommendation.
Okay, I can go along with that. Anybody wanna make such a motion?
Well, I guess I will.
Thank you.
I'll be number one.
All right. Made a motion. Commissioner Seeki made the motion, seconded.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Miller?
And I'll take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Jim Chambers
Aye.
and Chuck Raymond. Or Richard Gully.
Aye.
Chuck Gulla.
Yeah.
I shouldn't answer.
Yeah.
You voted under the wrong name.
I'm just testing you. Alright. Motion passes 4-0, and I will get you that determination tomorrow.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Appreciate that. Now we're moving on
Always a pleasure.
to the continued hearings. We have 2 goals. And we're going ahead with U Street. Is that correct?
Well, I
Yeah,
was
maybe
expecting Carl to be coming in tonight, either Carl or Anthony. I did tell him either 6:30 or 7 because I was expecting these to take a little bit longer, so we can give him another minute.
I'll skip that one. We're opening up the other one now.
Yeah, we'll open up the other one. I'm not expecting him to come in, so that's.
Our next continued hearing as pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, the Leominster Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on a notice of intent for tree removal, construction of a coop, it's a chicken coop, and associated machine work. The address is 445 North Street, map of parcel 289-1, DEP file number is 199-1173. No one's here to speak on this tonight, correct? Okay, let me rephrase that, speaking for the applicant tonight.
Speaking for the applicant tonight. Well, we were here to support him.
Oh,
Okay, but you're not the applicant.
We're not the
We'll
applicant.
come back to you in a few minutes. Okay, thank you.
So I was
Give us an update.
So prior to today, I was expecting Phil to come in, but there was a misunderstanding because, the last several times he's been coming in, we haven't had that many hearings. I called him today to let him know, he could come in later, like 7:30, depending on how this meeting was going. And it's at that time that he told me he has a prior engagement
Okay,
pretty
so
soon
he's
after
not
that.
here.
So he wasn't able to, so I told him it's fine if he's not able to come, but basically just we'll review the site visit that the 3 commissioners and myself had yesterday. Yes, yesterday morning. So Phil did have Norse Environmental come back since the last meeting, and they reflagged the area, and it pretty much corresponds with what that map was showing us before. I did send them an email, reached out to Maureen with Norse Environmental, and asked her how that delineation was determined, with whether it was vegetation, soils, or both. how that original delineation was done and this reflagging, if they redelineated or just restuck the flags where they had originally done, and I haven't heard back from her either way, so I don't have that answer for you right now. But Mike, Jim, and Rich were on the site yesterday morning and watched and saw the flags, saw where he's proposing a new coop up against that F&L road on the far side, on that general area of the coop where it is now. And I told him it might be a little bit tight there, but as far as I know, he's still hoping to get a smaller coop, not the current coop that's there, but he's gonna take that one down, rebuild a smaller one that's gonna be approximately like 10 by 20 feet in dimensions. So he hopes to have it like kind of up against the edge of that F&L road with outside of the 50 feet of the wetland, but from the walk we had, it was all
It's not outside 50 feet of the wetland.
Yeah, I know.
I'll
So
correct you on that.
so he
Right
should-
away. Give me a second.
Okay, sure.
If I may, there is nothing within, outside of 50 feet of the wetland. Okay, that encompasses the property. It is 50 feet from the stream bank, but barely any room beyond that to the road and the road line. There's also a difference in the property line from what we understood, where the property is not that backyard, that whole backyard. The property actually ends just behind it, just past the chicken coop toward this garden. So a whole bunch
It
of-
goes right through the fire pit.
Yeah, it goes through the fire pit, so a whole bunch of what's cleared there is not his property.
Alright.
So go ahead.
He's not proposing anything there, he's proposing up by,
So
No, but I'm just trying to mark that line that goes across the yard.
The coop may not be in that zone that he's proposing, but the work that he has done, that we are here to approve, was done on somebody else's property.
yes, so
That's a different,
it's a different
Thing.
story, it's a
yeah, it's different
story.
part from the coop.
So that's a good point. The property line is very good to keep in mind here. So what he's proposing is gonna depend on some things. He has told me he's been in communication with Alan Quattrale, which is the property owner of that adjacent parcel where he did some work already. He's trying to make a deal with him where he's gonna make an offer on that land and hopefully purchase it for himself, so it would eventually become Phil's property if that plan goes through. But there's some difficulties with that because it's hard to get an assessor out there because it's prohibitively expensive to get an assessor to assess a parcel that's all wetlands, basically. So instead of having an assessor come in and do all that, his plan is to make an offer to Alan and see what happens there. So if he's able to purchase the property, he's gonna go ahead and modify his proposal as far as that goes, but
Yeah.
because the wetland
I
flag.
don't believe we're waiting, we'll make a decision before that decision that goes through. We are based on the current situation, not a potential future property transfer. So I'm not sure how relevant that is for whatever decision this group needs to make, that he might buy property someday.
So basically,
Ma'am, we're not open for audience
Okay.
comments yet. We are gonna come to you, I promise.
Okay.
I promise. We just gotta finish with what the commission does first.
Yeah, the only reason I'm worried about that at all and considering that is because of what he's already done and the continuity of it with some of the other work that we're dealing with, including the brush clearing, the fire pit that's out there. It's half on his property, half on the other property, and it was included in this NOI already, so it's all sort of tied up
Jumbled together.
Yeah.
I think it's relevant.
Yeah, so that's the update as it is today, but he's still in communication with Mr. Quattrale. We're still dealing with this chicken coop location. So yeah, that's where it is right now, but he's not gonna be coming in. I wasn't expecting him coming in tonight. So.
Thank you, Nick. We'll take some comments from commissioners. I'll start with those who were at the site visit. Anyone?
No comments other than, I did notice one thing was that the erosion controls had been taken away. The wattles that were there were taken away. And I wanted to ask Phil, I'm kind of assuming that heavy rain and 6 inches of rain we had 2 days in a row kind of took those things out of play. Would definitely like to see those back in, because they were piled up in the corner, I noticed that the other day. But one thing I gotta say is, and I'm probably gonna be chased out of here with sticks, so let me get this out, is that, you know, we were considering allowing Mr. Mr. Simos to move the chicken coop outside of 50 feet of the buffer, 50 feet away from where it is and out of the buffer zone. It's in the buffer zone, but 50 feet. We're asking him to move it off of a structure with a concrete slab and put it over something that doesn't have a concrete slab. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm not saying,
Please
please finish.
And what happens is he could technically leave that building was grandfathered. We've learned in previous experience that if someone does something, whether it's in violation or not, and a new owner takes over, the new owner cannot be held liable for previous owner's work. So essentially, that building could stay there and he could fill it with insecticide, gasoline, potentially a whole bunch of things that are far worse than those chickens.
If they're released. Finish your comments, then we'll move to the
And
next
so
question.
I'm not in so much of a hurry to get that chicken coop moved. 2 reasons. One, under Residence A in the city of Leominster, a resident is allowed to have 10 chickens. There is nothing in there that prohibits it, that limits it, and we don't have a bylaw that says you can't have 10 chickens in the buffer zone. I've called the MACC, I've talked to other Conservation Commission members, and no one can show me evidence in the Wetlands Protection Act that says you can't have agriculture in the buffer zone. It encourages it. So I think, unless we were to have a bylaw, that he's perfectly within his rights. He's not disturbing the soil. There are farms all up and down the Nashua River. There are farms up on Fall Brook Reservoir.
This is a new situation, not an existing farm.
It doesn't matter when it comes, if you're not tilling, what I am told, if you are not tilling the soil, thereby creating an environment that could foster erosion, you are allowed to have agriculture right up to the stream.
This does not fall under the agriculture exemption. Nick has pointed that out.
Why? Why doesn't it?
Because it's not a commercial,
It is a commercial,
Agricultural.
he's selling the eggs.
Does he have an LLC?
Huh?
Does he have, is it a formal business? Is
We'd
it,
have to ask him, but he is
It's
charging.
zoned for business.
He is charging for the eggs.
Your turn,
You can
Commissioner.
have a local business, and you can have a home.
The building was not pre-existing. The
It's
garage,
The slab
there was garage there, it was torn down, so the chicken coop.
Mhm.
He built the chicken coop?
Yes, sir. And brought in the chickens without authorization from this commission.
And I'm concerned about the condition of the existing
Oh, I'm
chicken
not,
coop.
listen, I'm concerned about, I'm in this for the animals, nothing else. I'm in this for the animals. The animals are in a safe environment, I'll call it. I don't think it's the best location for the chicken coop. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. And I'm not saying that building is in the best condition for the chickens to be living in. And especially after the water. But without a bylaw, I think he's within his rights to have the chickens within.
I
The buffer
believe
zone.
it's a matter of commission decision. I don't think bylaws need a commissioner. I'm gonna come to you just after he gets his chance to talk and give his opinions. Then we'll come back around
Well,
again.
You know, I didn't take the opportunity presented to me to walk inside the coop itself, so I don't know the condition of that concrete floor. Has anybody examined that? I mean, we call it an impermeable barrier, but it may very well be seeping everything from the chicken coop right into the ground. That's
So
all.
it's roofed.
Yeah, or the roof, because he looks like he's had roof problems, he's got rocks and tar paper. I'm very interested in supporting people trying to do home agriculture or whatever. But in this situation, I think he jumped ahead of himself, and now he's trying to catch back, and he's trying to put it upon us to allow him to catch back.
Mhm. Would we have allowed this if he came to us in advance, is one of the questions we always like to ask. As opposed to, it was done, now do we need to let him leave? Go ahead, continue, Commissioner.
That pretty much sums it up, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Quinlan, how would you like to share with us?
I was gonna say not having a bylaw, number one, just puts it in our jurisdiction. Like we, as a board, get to decide what is appropriate. The second thing is, we're not saying that he has to take it out of the buffer zone entirely. We're deciding for moving forward what is appropriate. We have established, generally speaking, that we don't like chicken coops inside wetlands. And so now it comes down to how far away is appropriate, because if it was outside the buffer, he wouldn't have to come to us entirely. But we need to figure out like what footage we're okay with setting a standard that we can refer to consistently moving forward.
So when we, anything else to add before?
No.
Okay. So when we first came up with the 50-foot idea, originally it was mentioned, we have our 100-foot wetland buffer and 200 foot from riverfront. We're not gonna call this riverfront. But we're looking at that 50 feet. It's kind of a compromise since it was already built. However, some commissioners were looking at 50 feet from the top of the stream bank. Some looked at 50 feet from the edge of the wetland. There is no 50. The whole place is basically wetland, or most of it. There is no 50 feet beyond the wetland to do that unless you go to the other side of the house. In terms of 50 feet from the stream bed, there's barely any other room left. To me, it leaves the chicken coop too close to the stream. There were too many other things going on, and I am opposed to the coop staying there. It could be moved to the other side of the house up on the hill, where we went and walked to it,
I don't disagree that would be a better place.
which would be a better place. In terms of the place near the road, I wouldn't support that. It's too close to that stream right there. It's unfortunate that it was built without authorization, but that's what we deal with. So we obviously have some different opinions, and that's okay. That's actually maybe healthy for us. Before we, any last comments from Commissioner? I'll come back to you after we go to the audience. I'm delighted to open this up to you ladies, so you can share your thoughts, but please give your name and address as you do.
I'm Linda Jean Hall, I'm a butter at 435 North Street. And actually I support the chicken coop. I know that there's conservation concerns and all of that, but I don't see how having the chicken coop is different from the flock of turkeys that also lives in the wetlands there.
One is controllable, the other is not,
You know,
and that's our difference. There's a chance to make an impact on the one thing, but not with the wild turkeys, obviously.
yeah, because there's a lot
Also,
of
one is in a
wildlife.
concentrated space and the other one is roaming.
Yeah, well,
That is a good point, and concentrated 24/7, basically.
Yeah.
Other thoughts, Miss, but you
But-
support the coop, appreciate that.
I support the coop, and I think also that he's done so much work on the land to clean it up. I mean, I don't know, I don't suppose any of you ever saw that land before he moved in. But the land itself was filled, it was like used as a junkyard by whoever used to, not the immediately prior owner, but people before that. I mean, he dug out tires in the soil that were he must have dug out like 30 tires, the big black things, and pulled out other just junk and metal and glass, and that he just carted out of that area to clean up the whole piece of land to begin with. And I hate to see him penalized for having done so much good work to clean the land.
Thank you, Miss.
So-
I would disagree, it's penalized when we
Well,
when we were trying to get people to follow a law that they did not follow. This is a hearing, basically a law hearing of the Wetlands Protection Act. He did not follow it. It is not penalizing him to hold that to the law. So with that, I respectfully disagree, but I love hearing your comments. Anything else?
It's like, well, then you
Ma'am,
did-
please give your name and address, though.
Okay, my name's Jennifer Thornton.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Formerly of 41 Marion Parkway, a good friend of Linda Jean who's visiting at the moment, having seen the property before he bought it and where it is now. And, you know, if you're concerned about the wetlands, then you need to tromp up F&L Street a bit to see where people are filling in the wetlands with rocks and broken concrete and broken blacktop. Just a few properties up F&L Street after the road's blocked off, that they're accessing from the back of their yards from whatever that next real street is, and they're just backfilling the wetlands there.
Thank you. Mr. Kremp will
Yeah.
investigate and look into this, because that is
I
not
heard
allowed.
that, you know, they're dumping all of their yard waste back there, but they're also dumping what's clearly pickup trucks full of clean fill, I wanna say, sort of, kind of. Where they,
And that's a direct violation of the Wetlands Protection Act. There's no filling or withdrawing within the buffer zone.
and it's clearly the same habitat as the creek. Cause it's that but they figure nobody goes down that street anymore because it's closed off, so nobody will know. I was walking my dog back there yesterday amongst all the mosquitoes and the wild grapes and the Virginia creeper and the other creeper that nobody likes. And it was like, oh, gee, where did all that stuff come from? It wasn't here 4 years ago, last time it came down this path. Along with the one tree that fell in the meantime. But, so yeah, there's some violation of the wetlands happening back there.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. Any other thoughts?
Well, again, it's like wetlands are hard. People still don't think of them as a good thing. I mean, there's a mosquito haven back there. And I'm a donor. So, like most people, not appreciating, but I understand their importance. As a master gardener here in as having been the principal master gardener here in Massachusetts, I understand their importance. As a master gardener in Florida where I live now, yes, I understand their importance, especially in Florida. But I know a lot of people don't recognize how much land a wetland really takes. And I think that's perhaps her neighbor's initial reaction was. He saw the little creek, he didn't realize how much more of that land, until he started getting the vegetation and the trash out of there, was actually involved in the wetland, because you couldn't see it.
Understood.
Nobody thought that they were doing anything intentionally to harm the wetlands. It's a tough thing to understand the rules, and it's a tough thing to apply them.
And to answer your question about the person who checked the property Tuesday, who was going around, she was doing testing, was it last Friday? She actually, she did soil samples, because we saw
We saw her taking soils.
I figured that's what they did.
Okay, yeah.
we saw taking
Declare well.
soil samples and leaving little blue flags.
Yeah.
So there was some of each of that being done.
Okay.
Because we happened to be enjoying ourselves on the back deck at her house and going, oh, who's that? Oh, soil samples.
That is helpful, thank you for your comments. That, what she's probably doing was looking at the soil and seeing if there was wetland soils, there's different
Yeah.
chemical processes that change it. So that is helpful,
Well,
that
as a
helps
master
answer some
gardener,
more
I
questions.
recognized what she was doing. It's like, oh, she's
Yeah.
doing soil samples.
Yes, yeah.
And then she was like, one place she was like, dig, 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 and then she'd go like a foot away and go dig, dig, dig. And I'm like, oh, she must be at a changeover point because of where she was. And there's some places she only did once, and then there was a place or two where she did a couple near each other. It's like, must be a transition point, or a change, maybe a soil disturbance, and she was trying to figure out which way it was.
Right.
Because that was kind of near the fire pit.
Thank you for the comments, really appreciate your coming in and sharing. Appreciate your support for the owner's application. Any final comments from commissioners before I ask Nick what he wants from us tonight? Nick?
Right, so before I go on with my recommendation, I just wanna thank you too for coming and your comments. So, we do recognize the good that Phil has done on the property. I haven't seen it myself beforehand, but he's shown me plenty of pictures from before and throughout the process, so we know how much he took out of there. But he's still required, to go through this process, which should have been before any of the work, and that's part of the complication is we're trying to do this all after the fact, so that's, part of the issue here. But thank you again for, giving us that background and giving us a little bit more context for what's going on. It's definitely helpful. Appreciate it. And I will definitely be investigating that dumping site up F&L Road, just to maybe temper expectations. It is difficult to catch people when there are established dumping sites like that,
It's not
especially.
gonna be like Alice's Restaurant with the address at the bottom.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So things like this, where it's a property owner and it's one location, things are a lot more enforceable and able to trackable. But I will be looking into that and keeping an eye on that area for
And if
sure.
you are gonna go back there, if you have one of those stupid screens that goes over your hat so your
Yeah.
ears don't get eaten alive.
Absolutely. No, I'm familiar with the blood donor status down there. Yeah.
Thank you, so we close this hearing, and Nick, do you wanna vote tonight or not?
No, I would. It's been recommended to me to not close a hearing, especially when the applicant isn't present, and it's because it opens up the possibility
By
to
whom?
appeal, DEP, people in DEP, because it opens up, the possibility for appeal and makes that appeal more strong when the applicant isn't present when we close it out. And aside from that, I would recommend that we continue this anyway until we're able to get Phil back in here and resolve some of the property issues going on, because there are also, speaking of concrete and cement and debris and things, there is some debris that's pushed up into Mr. Quattralli's property from Phil's property, so that needs to be addressed as well. All that debris needs to be cleaned up.
So will that require a notice of intent from Mr. Petrelli or from Phil, or to get a machine in there? Cause that's gonna take machine work to remove that stuff.
It would require Mr. Quattralli's permission, but I'm sure he has communicated to me that he wishes the site to be returned to its previous state, which that would necessitate. So
So he's given permission for that.
and I will be in touch with him again for any specific future work that we permit, but that would be acceptable to him. So I would recommend that we continue the hearing until at least until the next meeting on August 22nd.
Okay, I'm gonna share some thoughts on that. Not 100% in agreement with that necessarily. This has been on here since, as we're gonna go through in a few minutes and approve the October 25th, 2022 minutes. This was brought up then.
Yep.
This has been delayed, this decision about this coop, since October. We're now into August. I'm ready to make a vote, whatever that vote is. I think some other commissioners are, one way or the other. However, we're missing two commissioners tonight. And they've been involved since October, and I hate to lose their vote. And with recognition that the owner is not here, we can continue this once more, but I won't ask to continue it beyond that. He needs to come to the next meeting, we'll take a vote.
And I will
Is that
just
okay?
And I'll just to clarify for everyone involved, if we get a motion for a vote and a second on that motion, we can hold a vote at any time.
Mhm.
That will initiate a vote, and then people are allowed to vote however they want. So it may pass, may not pass, but if we have a motion and a second, we can vote at any time. Again, with that said, my recommendation at this time would be to continue it until
I'll
August.
accept the continuance until August, and then we'll make a motion at that point, one way or the other, so we get a vote. I'm not here in September, and I've been involved in this since October, so I want my vote to count. So Stephanie, you have a thought on this?
I was just gonna say I don't know how much value it is fighting on it if it is against DEP's recommendation to be making motions and passing judgment without the applicant in front of us.
We're waiting, we're gonna continue.
Okay, well, you're doing it in a kind of a threatening way.
I did it in a way that I'm willing to continue it, but it is time to get off the pot here and make a decision on this. It's been since October.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
So-
personally ready to vote, but I can also wait, like it doesn't
No,
hurt,
I
it
can-
doesn't hurt me to keep it on the
We're gonna wait
docket.
2 more weeks, absolutely, I'm going along with that, but I don't wanna keep waiting, plus I missed.
No, it doesn't make sense to keep it.
No,
Yeah.
I think we need to expedite this.
Continue it once more, So I'd like a motion to continue this particular hearing to the next meeting, which is August 22nd.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner
I'll
Quinn.
second.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Alright, we have Steph and Jim. I'll take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Mike Seeking
Yes.
and Richard Gulick.
Aye.
Alright, motion continued 4-0, and we'll pick this back up again on the 22nd.
Nick, please let the other two commissioners know that this went from about 7 o'clock to 7:25 for the video.
Okay,
So they can watch it and vote come next time.
absolutely.
I'm so happy you
And thank you
came
for getting
out.
that timestamp.
Thank you so much. We don't get much company here sometimes. So Ms. Hall, Ms. Thornton, thank you for being great citizens, and we'll see what happens in 2 weeks. We're gonna take about a 3-minute break here before we go into the next hearing. Allow Ms. Quinlan a short break. We continue here after a short break. It is now 7:29. Our other continued hearing pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, the Leominster Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on a notice of intent for the construction of a single-family house and associated site work in a wetland buffer zone and riverfront area of Manusnack Brook, address View Street, Lot 1, map and parcel 123-14-1, DEP file number 199-1180. Tonight we have with us presenting, Carl, name and address, please.
150 Joslin Street,
Name?
Leominster, Mass. Carl Demassa.
You say Jocelyn?
Joslin.
Oh, I live on Lincoln.
Oh, I'm great.
I drive by here all the time.
Apple and fun. Where you going?
I got
You going on?
I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't know we were sending around Rich and
Okay, go ahead, Carl. What do you have new for us tonight?
well, I guess we got a file number, we get a whole bunch of comments.
Mhm.
And Nick and I went through all the comments, and then he reached out to them,
Them being DEP?
DEP, to answer all the comments, so I'll get the clarification of the comments. And then, it came back to, I can put a single family home. So, this is where it is.
Nick, can you add to that?
He can,
As opposed
he
to
can
it was
answer.
originally expected as a duplex.
Yeah.
Nick?
Alright, so basically, as Carl had stated, Mass DEP, they did issue their comments to this NOI, and one of those, I'll just kind of go through the comments and what has brought us to this point here. So, the first part references 310 CMR 10.584 D1. Which is the part which lays out, in a lot in the riverfront area, basically up to 5,000 square feet of the riverfront area or 10% of the riverfront area in that lot, whichever is greater, can be altered. And as we've stated in previous hearings on this project, the area of riverfront area proposed for development here is greater than that. It was closer to like 25% of the area. So they point out that problem with this plan. However, they go on to mention if this lot with identical dimensions was in existence prior to August 7th, 1996, alteration of 5,000 square feet of riverfront area may be allowed, or, and they reference this part of the act, is 310 CMR 10.584 D3, and it says may allow the construction of a single family home. So let me just read that section of the act really quick. That
Section of the act or section of the regulations?
section of the regulations, excuse me, of the 10.584 D3. So that reads, notwithstanding the provisions of 310 CMR 10.584 D1 or 2, the issuing authority shall allow the construction of a single-family house, a septic system if no sewer is available, and a driveway on a lot recorded before August 7th, 1996, where the size and shape of the lot within the riverfront area prevents the construction from meeting the requirements of 10.584 for D1 or 2. And so that basically says this provision, number 3, what I just read, allows for the construction of a single-family house in the riverfront area where it exceeds that 10% if it meets these other provisions here. So those parts are that the first 100 feet of riverfront area remains undisturbed, and the second part deals with riverfront areas of 25 square feet or 25 feet, which is isolated to urban areas. It doesn't relate to this, so we're only worried about that 100 square, or not 100, the 100 feet of riverfront area remaining undisturbed. So if he does that, then we can allow this provision. If you look on the most recent revised plans here, you can see the 100-foot riverfront area, or the 100-foot riparian zone and the 200-foot riparian zone. And you can see that there's a small sliver of that 100-foot riverfront area, which is already disturbed due to the grading there. However, being it such a small sliver, I would recommend that if Carl proposes, native plantings on that slope, which he has included in this most recent revised copy.
And that's what's called the restoration area?
Yep, that restoration area. So he's going to revegetate the entirety of what was disturbed in that first 100 feet, and that would satisfy that provision, which allows for the construction of a single-family house in this lot. So that's all a little bit complicated. If people need, clarifications on some points, I understand that. But that's how we got from a duplex to a single-family house, and how we got that small sliver of riparian zone being revegetated to satisfy that provision. Okay, because the provision in the regulation specifically states if he's able to, if we satisfy those conditions, that 100-foot undisturbed, then you can build a single-family house here, even if you can't satisfy the 10% maximum of disturbance and so forth.
Can or must allow?
We don't have to allow, but this provision allows for construction of or developments in the riverfront area that otherwise
It's-
wouldn't satisfy,
It's not prevented by the regs.
Right.
The regulations to build this single family house there. So this notice of intent has been modified from duplex to single family.
Yep.
Correct.
And some of the, part of that does state that the lot must be applicable. It must be under applicable provisions of other municipal and state law, and the maximum extent of yards around the house should be limited to the area necessary for construction. But the yard is already pretty constrained due to the topography of the site. It's not this big, expansive yard. So to me, this basically fits in those provisions as long as he's able to revegetate that 100-foot in the riverfront.
My big concern is that the slope, as you know, the slope stays vegetated.
Yep.
And did we confirm that the lot, as it is shown here, is how it looked in 76?
So the lot, according to the city GIS, which it would not show this if the lot configuration had changed at all, this lot is shown as being purchased for the first time in 1949. So this lot was in existence back in the 40s, which is what Carl has been telling us, and you can see that on the city GIS when you look at property cards. So that does satisfy that part about prior to 1997.
Commissioner
I
Chin.
understand that part, but
Yep.
where are we dividing? When you go to sell this house, you're gonna have a plot line, right? Where will the plot line for this property?
Well, right now, it's the whole lot. I mean, I don't know
Okay,
what's
so-
going now.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's no intention to try to develop this
Oh,
corner.
right, this can't be developed all in water.
So you
Yeah,
have
that's
no
for all
intention to
intents and-
subdivide?
No.
Okay.
And if
I don't
they,
think that's consistent with what you told us last time.
Well, I wanna, see this person over here? I wanted to give them some property.
which the existing duplex?
The house down here on Daly Street, 70?
Okay.
My
Oh, right.
property is touching their house. So yeah, I was gonna do,
Oh,
but I pull up, I'm not saying anything about anything like that because of that reason. I don't wanna I got a big house. I got too much money invested in this whole thing. But, so, yeah, and if I subdivide it, there's nothing anybody can do over here because the sewer line goes right through it. This is why this house is so jammed up here anyway. Because everything down here is either wet, sewer, drainage, or not applicable for anything.
And I'd just like to point out, even if he was going to subdivide this lot, the rest of the parcel would put the house almost entirely within the 100-foot. So, I mean, he wouldn't be able to satisfy it would be way over 10% of that parcel
Yeah.
being developed, and it wouldn't even be able to satisfy the provision for the single family house, so.
Okay, thank you for checking in
well,
with
and
DEP on
that's
this.
what I wanted to have explained, so thank you.
Yes, yeah.
But if you're gonna do that, I would recommend that you include that in this action, because you're gonna have to come and do a separate NOI. To
Not if I'm gonna not do
To
it.
convey,
if you decide to convey this property to.
NOIs are just for alterations. So if he's not changing anything physically on the property, they're just altering the lot lines, they don't need to file an NOI for that.
But then, how much of that takes out of the total square footage that you were making your calculations?
So the square footage is, the square footage kind of goes out the window if we're going with that number 3 provision, which allows for the single family house. The only part that he needs to satisfy that is that, you know, he otherwise wouldn't be able to build on this lot, and the other part is to keep that first 100-foot riparian area undisturbed, which he has already disturbed, but we're gonna replant to, you know, offset that.
Any other thoughts on this one? Okay, we're gonna move on to the next phase, is to ask if there's anybody in the audience who wants to ask questions. Seeing nobody in the audience, we are gonna move on and close this hearing. You perfect, no questions, right?
No.
Okay, and Nick, what do you recommend at this point in time?
Well, let me ask you, Carl. So I noticed, Anthony, this is a draft plan, or no, it is stamped. Never mind. Excuse me. I was thinking about the one you had sent
I
me
sent
earlier in the
you- I
email. So
wanted
this
to-
is a stamped plan, so it's ready to go.
To touch it up if need be, yeah, that's why I didn't stamp it till we
Awesome.
agreed on everything.
All right. So given that, I would recommend that we approve the order of conditions with the modifications presented today to build the single family instead of the duplex, and that we include all of our, you know, continued our normal boilerplate special conditions on that. So I'd recommend we approve the order with the normal special conditions
Can we
attached.
add that anything that degrades that hillside gets repaired also? Or where he's already put the grass in, to help maintain that through this project,
Sure.
That's fine.
something like that, at least
Yeah.
for some
So,
period of
and
time.
I'd like to say, well, that, you had some neighbors here last week that aren't here tonight, and they commented about, they were concerned about that embankment of soil.
Yeah, that's my main concern. My only concern is the embankment, not
Oh,
the
I'm
house
with
on
you,
top.
yeah.
Yeah, so if you can, so something, yes, a motion would be, as Nick said, plus a condition to repair damage, you know, caused by
Well, it's
storms.
currently, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Anybody wanna make that motion to move this house?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Commissioner Chamber, any second?
I'll second it.
Okay, second from Commissioner Mike.
Okay, I'll take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Stephanie Quinlan.
Aye.
And Richard Gullick.
Aye.
Alrighty. Motion passes, order is granted, and I will get that in the mail to you tomorrow.
Mr. Demassa, thank you on behalf of the commission for addressing that slope and all of that erosion there in a prompt fashion.
We tried and it's still,
We
still, with
appreciate
all the
that.
rain we've had, it's still holding up.
Next time we'll see you before the dirt gets cleared.
I got no more land than what
We
I'm.
got that with you now. Okay, thank you, sir. This hearing is now closed.
Congratulations.
Thank you all.
Good luck with it. Okay, we're moving down our agenda. We are down to extension permits. 122 Water Street, DEP file number 199-1113. Mr. Nick.
Alright, so these are our friends down at Whitney Carriage. They have several orders open right now. They've gotten like 7 or 8 orders over the last couple of years that are in various states right now. Some have been closed out completely, some of them are obviously still open here. So this order that we have in front of us, this file number that we have in front of us was granted August 7th of 2020. So that would mean it would have expired yesterday if they didn't get the request for an extension in already. So it's kind of up in the air until we're able to come to a decision with this. The work included on this is for a number of parking lot improvements, including the south lot of Whitney Carriage, which is that kind of main parking lot across the street from the complex. Some of those improvements include the installation of like a central island in that parking lot that's going to include plantings and a rain garden as part of one of their modifications that this commission approved, several months back. But they're not going to be able to get started on that, projecting with all their other projects going on. They're not going to be able to get going on that until at least the spring. So they requested the extension, and I would recommend that we grant the extension through to October 7th of 2024, just to give them a little bit. Just extend it a year plus 2 months just to get them through the work season in case there's other delays. They should be able to get all these parking lot improvements done by next year, but they're not gonna be able to start.
Make it 15 months. Make it November.
Sure. We'll make it November 7th.
Get through the season.
November
Get through the
7th.
season. Why not?
Sure. So that my recommendation would be that we approve the extension through to November 7th of 2024.
Any thoughts, comments?
They're a wonderful addition to the city. They're doing a great job down there. You've seen some of the benches and other things they put along the brook. It's beautiful. I mean, it really is really well done, I think, and I think it's a real asset to the city.
Thank you for sharing that.
Excellent.
Excellent. Anybody want to make this motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Second? From Commissioner Chambers.
Okay. Take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Stephanie Quinlan.
Aye.
And Richard Gully.
Aye.
All right. Extension granted through November 7th, 24.
It's amazing that the building is still there after those 2 storms.
Yeah.
With that dam there.
Yeah.
So our next one is on communication from Hillary Road, Lot 7A. Is that the undeveloped lot next to 50?
With
Okay.
the open order.
So I had asked for an extension and we had not, and we had declined it.
And we had denied it, yeah, so it's, they have an open order that is set to expire sometime in April of next year. So they got a couple months on this open order. I was contacted by a contractor that was in communication with the property owners here who was interested in starting work on the site. I haven't been able to get back in touch with him, but,
What's the work?
for the construction of a single family house.
Oh, to build their house.
Yes.
Oh, they're gonna go ahead with it.
They have an open order and they're able, it's permitted work, so they're able to do it. So I've been contacted by someone that's interested in doing it, and I reached back out. I haven't been able to get in touch with them, but that's just giving you guys a heads up that I do anticipate them starting some kind of work on that lot.
Wow.
So
Okay, how about that?
I'll let you know more as I find out more, but that is the status.
We felt bad they couldn't sell, so glad they're building, I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next, any questions, commissioners? Next is enforcement, number 4 here, on the Harwood Terrace sidewalk on August first with Bobreck Engineering. Nick, you wanna
Yes.
fill us in?
So last Tuesday, I had a site walk with John Bobrek, his colleague Jonathan Sano, I believe his name was, and our Vice Chair Richard Gullick was on site. And Josh Brennicky also joined us halfway through that walk as well. So we walked the site. It was the first time John Bobrek was on site. We walked all up the driveway, down through the creek, talked to the neighbor briefly, Ian Fraser at 50 Hillary, walked up through his backyard and saw all the sediment and everything that's being taken care of with the other violation notice. So yeah, that's basically where it is. We had the site walk. John Bobrek has since been busy with the Pan Mass
Challenge.
the Pan Mass Challenge, yeah, with the bike race. So he said he's going to be out of touch until later this week because he's busy with that. But I've been in touch with Chris Anderson, who's going to be sending me their preliminary calculations for the site. He has to get that all consolidated, and he's going to be sending it to me, and then I'll be sending it to John Bobrek for his analysis. And that's where it is right now. That's the status of the site. So, and Mr. Brennicky, the property owner, has been working on the enforcement order for the collapse. So they've since had machines get in there and get that first phase that they had talked about, where they were clearing out the immediate site of the collapse and all the washout down there. So we saw that on our site walk. They, dug out the first part of the creek to reestablish its capacity, built up the bank a little bit, and they're still working their way down the creek and continuing.
Back on.
Are they
So also-
removing that material, or are they just shoring up the bank with it?
So they're shoring up the downslope side of the bank. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Where it should go.
Where it should go.
So the machine work of that first phase appears to be finished, but they still need to go through with hand tools and get the lower sediment piles that are still piled up. But yeah, that's the status right now.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Thank you for the update. We have no emergency certifications tonight. Under new business, our agent's gonna tell us about his conservation community walks on August 24th and August 26th. And may I recommend that you include in the agenda the actual details of times?
Sure.
Just in case somebody happens to want the details. But tell us about the two hikes.
I figured the agenda was long enough already.
Yeah, you're right. You kept it on 2 pages.
But so on the 24th, we will be hosting an invasive species walk at the Johnny Appleseed State Park area. It's kind of it's behind the Babe Ruth Fields down off of Lancaster Street. We had one walk there previous, so if you attended that one or you knew about that one, it's going to be in the same location. And then that'll be in the afternoon. That'll be starting at 4 p.m. on that Thursday, August 24th. And then on August 26th, that following Saturday, there is going to be another walk at 9:30 a.m. at Barrett Park with the theme of tree and mushroom identification. So hopefully we'll be getting some good rains ahead of that. Might see some mushrooms, we might not. But that's the plan.
Well, I've done one of these hikes with him, and he's a real fun guy out there, so telling us all this stuff. I had to do it on the phone.
I think you would.
You knew that was coming.
And you were at the Barrett Park walk almost a year ago. Yeah.
Very good.
So
Okay.
come back to
Those are nice. The last one of the last ones, which was at Prospect.
Yep.
We had 19 people out there.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, get popular.
And one person who had come to a meeting was very interested in the commission, which segues into there's an open seat on the commission.
So unfortunately, our long-serving commissioner Ken Ridlin had to resign due to personal issues, so he's not going to be serving on the board anymore. So we have one vacancy. I just put out a post on the Facebook page today advertising as much. I'm going to be letting the other department heads in City Hall know to spread that message on their social media as well, and reach out to people that that might be interested and get someone on the board. I know we had one person who attended a meeting previously who had expressed some interest, so I'm going to be reaching out to him. Yeah, hopefully we'll get someone soon, I think we'll be able to fill it pretty quickly, but we'll see.
It's been a very good, strong development of a good team here on this commission. Chuck's the only one who's been here longer than 22 months, I guess,
Yeah.
since we came in October, I think,
Yep,
2 years
yep.
ago. So it's all new commission, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Next is no old business or a budget discussion. Meeting minutes from October 25th, 2022. I did a minor edit in there.
Okay.
Keep it in mind. Anybody have any comments?
No.
Anybody want to make a
You're doing a
motion to
fine
approve
job,
those
Anthony.
minutes?
Very thorough.
He keeps them short, that helps. So is Chuck. Any motion, please, to accept these minutes?
I will make that motion.
Thank you,
I'll second that
Commissioner Quinlan. Thank you, Commissioner. Siki.
And I'll take the rest of the commission's vote by roll call. Jim Chambers, Dominic, and Richard Cully.
Aye.
All right, minutes for October 25th, 2022 have been accepted, and I put July 25th up there in case I was able to finish it. I was not, so I will get that on
Okay.
for review for the next meeting.
I noticed they weren't there, so
Yeah.
that's okay. Our next thing is there any subjects the commissioners wanted to bring up for discussion before we depart for the evening? Okay, with that in mind, our next meeting is August 22nd, Tuesday here at 6 p.m., same room. Filing deadline was August 4th at noon. The meeting after that will be September 12th, 2023. Filing deadline is August 25th at noon. I will be absent from both September meetings, so we'll miss those. And
National Guard?
Vacation.
Where you going?
I go to South Dakota.
Okay.
Would anybody care to
I have one more
motion to-
I have one more comment.
Oh, please.
I am extremely impressed with the amount of work that was put into this for Carl. You did a great job.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that.
Great job. Yeah, that was well articulated and well done.
I think that's a success story that bank that we came upon that first day has since been grassed and covered.
Yeah.
He built what he wants up there, right? Thank you, Commissioner Sidney, for that.
Yeah. Victory all
Thank you,
around.
Nick, for all these things. Yes, we're getting a few victories here. A motion, please, to adjourn the meeting.
So made.
Thank you, Commissioner Quinlan. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And a
Sidney.
third you got. You got a third on
I
that one.
got a third, I
And
got
I'll
four.
count you for one, and Rich 4, so that passes 4-0.
Now
We're outta
we're
here.
well
Thank you.